Welcome back guys, Frank here. This is today's top comment on AskReddit. People who idealized a city, like NYC or Tokyo, and then actually took a leap of faith to move there. How has your opinion changed since? Lived in NYC for a decade. Loved it. Then was okay with it. Then with COVID, I'd had enough. I moved to LA and it doesn't really compare in any real way, but the weather is such a ridiculous blowout. I'm happier here. Outside is nice. I have a remote job and no car and pretend it's a walkable city. I moved from a farm town to Queens. I saw a picture of a lively crowded bar and just wanted to be there, surrounded by unfamiliar, raucous life. Density of people creates things that cannot exist in cities that are spread out, even large ones. You have to be jammed together. Visiting is absolutely nothing like living there, as picking apples one afternoon tells you nothing about farming. Growing up, I always wanted to live in New York City. I have lived here for a decade and a half now. I would never live anywhere else. I did this with Chicago and I love it so much. I grew up in San Francisco, romanticized Vancouver, went there for study abroad. Everyone called me crazy for not going somewhere more exotic, but that's where I really wanted to be. It was awesome. So awesome, in fact, that I'm planning to move back permanently as soon as I graduate. I moved from a small town in rural Newfoundland to Toronto, and it's amazing. I love my city and walking the streets and being downtown every day. Berlin. There is perhaps always a tempering of expectations after a while, but even 7 years in, I still feel this was right. I know the city is not as unique as I thought in all regards, and that there are places that exceed it with respect to specific forms of ambience or excellence, but every time I step into some little weird counterculture reinvention bubble by accident, or find myself on a dance floor at 7 a.m. in the morning where people still are having public intimacy off by the side, or when I see how excellent my competitors in the local research field are, I am reminded of how it was the right choice. I was the stereotypical small-town southern girl who dreamed of living in NYC. I fantasized about it through my entire childhood, even before I first visited. Got my first job as a barista at 16 and told everyone it was so I could start saving up to move to NYC. Told every guy I dated in high school and college that our relationship had an expiration date unless they wanted to move to NYC. I don't think anyone really took me seriously, not even my parents. Well, I fucking did it. Been in NYC for 10 years now and my opinion hasn't changed. Loved it then, love it now, never leaving, knock on wood. Not really a specific city, but as someone who grew up in Hong Kong, I thought that American cities like LA, SF and Seattle would feel more similar to what I was used to in terms of overall vibe, density, and skyscrapers, with the image I had of America being the world leader. Having lived in the US for a while, only NYC really ended up giving me the busy metropolitan city vibe that I was conditioned to expect from growing up in Asia. I feel like the word you meant to use is romanticized. Downtown Manhattan is great, but the rich cultural tapestry in the other boroughs is probably the best part of the city. Living here makes me forget all about the shitty public transit infrastructure in the country. I'm looking at you, people who moved to Austin right after your first SXSW experience. I mean, kind of the opposite. I left the metropolitan DMV and now live out in the vast nature of Colorado. It's beautiful, real, natural, and so clean. I fell more in love with Chicago and its people than ever. Though technically I live very near to and not in it. I took a leap of faith to move to San Francisco, and it exceeded my wildest dreams. Not sure if I idealized Tokyo, but I had a high opinion of it. It's better than I thought and I'm extremely happy. LA is cool. It's a lot easier to empathize with people struggling when you see up close that they are just like you. The narrative of lazy, dangerous drug addicts that chose this life over being productive burns away. It makes you realize how inherent dehumanization is to maintaining the status quo and how violent and cruel the powerful truly are. There needs to be change and it needs to come soon. These people and all people deserve better, more secure lives. Also, there's a cool video rental store. Wanted to live in Seattle since I was 11. When Nirvana hit it big and I learned about the scene, I knew that's where I wanted to be. Been here for 25 years and it's exactly the place where I wanted to live. Austin was exactly what I dreamed about as a kid. Leaving broke my heart, and if I could afford it again I would move back in a heartbeat, but the cost of living was just too high. I moved to Honolulu. I loved the culture, the beaches and the lifestyle. The cost of living was awful and the homeless were aggressive. I would go visit but would never live there again. I was working to get by and my time there wasn't how imagined. I moved to California when I was 20. Spent about a year there. My motorcycle was my only means of transportation. It was paradise, but I missed my family and friends from back home. I moved back, started a little family, and I'm graduating from law school in a few weeks. Looking back, I would say that I do not regret moving there at all. It shaped who I am as a person because I had zero expectations to live up to while I was out there. Nobody knew me, so it was a period of self-discovery. Once I knew who I really was, I had nothing to hide from anymore, and I came home. I lived in Manhattan for 10 years, W171 Street. Absolutely hated it, glad to not be there anymore. The only thing I miss is the food, don't think I had a single bad meal there. Notwithstanding the current chaos, DC is an amazing place to live. I was born in the shadow of New York, moved here to be an adult, and I'll never leave if I can have my way. It's perfect for me. As a kid I grew up in a small city, tallest building was 10 stories and I was fascinated by cities like NYC, Tokyo, Hong Kong, etc. I eventually moved to Tokyo, been here for over 10 years and absolutely love it. I complain about things every now and then, but deep inside I know I could never live anywhere else. I was like this with London. I studied abroad there while I was in college and still loved the city and the experience even more than I had expected, but the isolation and separation from my loved ones affected my mental health and I struggled with disordered eating. I came back 10 years later with my husband on my honeymoon and it was perfect. I guess the conclusion is that London is a great city, but it's better if you know somebody there because it's easy to feel lonely in a crowd. I'd often go days without speaking to anyone when I lived there. I moved from a small town to my dream city, back to my small town, and I wish I stayed in my dream city except for family. I moved to NYC right out of college. I did it smartly, at least. I got a job offer and a cheap apartment out on Long Island. I left NYC after 2 years, but really I have no regrets. NYC was entirely different from where I grew up in a Midwest suburb, and I think I was just yearning for something different, and I got it. My entire childhood, I was in love with London. I mean, I had fantasies about living there as a grown-up. Then I spent a college semester there in 2015. It's alright. But no less a shithole than most big cities. Glad I went though. I didn't fetishize NYC, but I always thought I'd move there. Went to visit to look at neighborhoods and realized quickly it wasn't for me. What got me was the trash absolutely everywhere, blowing around sidewalks, and it smelled so bad in the heat. I happily live in Chicago now. We have alleys for trash, lol. I love it here and it's perfect for me, the people, the lake, transit, everything. Still enjoy visiting NYC, though. I idealized moving to London, England. It was fantastic and one of the best things I ever did. I was traveling to Chicago once a quarter for work and thought how cool it would be to live here. Moved after a few years and never looking back. The first time I visited NYC, I was in the city just under 24 hours and fell in love. Moved here the January after the 9th of November and have been here ever since. It's home. That's how I was about London. I ended up living there for 2 years and absolutely loved it. I only left because my visa ran out. If I had my way, I'd live there for the rest of my life. I lived in Istanbul for 8 years. I hated it most of the time. Spending 5 hours in traffic, crazy rent for shitty houses. I value my life, my youth. Now, I am living in a city with 500k people in the US. I enjoy small cities. No traffic, peaceful life. I just bought a 2,400 square feet, 225 square meters house with lots of luxury upgrades for $470,000. No way this is possible in chaotic big cities. I wish I could enjoy living in a city like NYC. Growing up in a place like NYC and then moving to the States to realize that I actually enjoy suburb living. Oxford, forget Disneyland, Oxford is my happiest place on earth. For anyone academic, do what you can to get yourself there. It's worth every second. Paris, France. I've been here 20 years, from the other side of the world. Paris syndrome might be a thing for others, but I love the place. So many beautiful buildings, the Seine at night with paniches and cafes on the quays on long summer evenings. Since Hidalgo started her anti-car crusade, it just keeps getting better and better. Seattle is literally everything I thought it would be, and I'm not leaving unless Trump's nonsense makes me have to flee to Canada, LOL. I always wanted to try Toronto after living in Vancouver, and it has been everything I wanted and more. There's always something going on and every nook and cranny is filled with hidden gems. What's the one really cool neighborhood center of your town or city? Well, every part of Toronto is like that, just filled with amazing stores and beloved parks and one-of-a-kind experiences. Not a city, but I definitely romanticized the heck out of New England before I moved here. It's been 4 years now and I still can't imagine living anywhere else. I adore this region. Wanted to live in London. I'm American, ever since I was a little kid. I ended up going to university there, and it was the best 3 years of my life. The only reason I left is because COVID forced me to move back in with my parents, and I miss it every day. I miss the public transport, getting lost among a crowd of strangers, wandering streets of ancient stone and modern glass. I miss the free museums and all the parks. I miss the pubs. London was and still is my favorite city in the world, and I hope to go back someday. I've lived in LA for almost 9 years now. It's not a perfect city, but it's perfect for me. I'm LGBT and knew there wasn't a future for me in my small southern town, and I wanted to work in the film industry, so moving here was an obvious choice. There are so many more options than back home, actual public transit, cultural places for events, cool things to do, and I'm surrounded by people from a bunch of other cultures and countries. And the food is amazing. I might have to move away soon, lost my entertainment job and the industry is flatlining, and it's breaking my heart. I love my little corner of LA. I will be leaving a piece of my heart behind if I have to go. That being said, I've always wanted to visit Tokyo, and this thread is giving me FOMO. Bali. I didn't nurse a fantasy for long. I first went there in February and returned to live there in May. But it is so different living there. Seeing the same people every day mindlessly and automatically performing begging and pleading felt like swallowing stale food. I saw the same routine and conformity in the constant religious offerings that are pretty but automated. I met lovely expats and locals, but there's a stress in dealing with a constant tourism paradigm. I had business to do, and at 3 months I knew I had to leave. I wrapped up my business quickly and fled back to Australia. I would love to move to NYC. The hard part is rent, and being an only child, I'd feel guilty leaving my parents. My friend moved to Philly and was floored how it wasn't like it is on TV or movies. It's dirtier, sure, but also far, 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 far bigger than anyone tells you, especially if you count the outer Philly areas and burbs. It's a massive fucking area. He said week 1 his family printed out the Rocky Run map and nearly died because of how big Philly actually is. If you are unaware, Rocky Run's a 30-mile course in that training, and know the old Ship 2006 MapQuest printout the site had does not meant I on that at all. I dreamed of living in Tokyo. Then I did in 2018 for most of the year as a student. Visited in 2019, 2022, 2023, 2024, and moved there again later in 2024. It's better than I ever dreamed it would be, and I had pretty high expectations. Most of what I hear about life in Tokyo and Japan as a foreigner on Reddit is blatantly untrue or representing a very rare thing as common. It rules. I don't want to be anywhere else, at least for the next few years. I idealized Chicago. When I moved here right at the beginning of summer a couple years ago, I had the time of my life. I fell in love with the city through its parks, live music scene, and excellent food options. I feel so spoiled living here. However, moving from Southern California, the winters and inconvenience of driving are deal breakers for me, and I will be moving back to somewhere warm at the end of the week. London. The culture, the different neighborhoods, the art, the style, the museums, history, culture, it is a true melting pot. It is expensive, there are challenges of course, and the visibility of wealth is staggering. At the same time, the pace of work and living was slower than anything I experienced in the US. I loved it and would have stayed permanently if I could. LA and Las Vegas are both different flavors of heck, especially if you like having a day job. My opinion hasn't changed, but NYC sure has changed since I moved here 40 years ago. Wanted to live in Vegas, so when my then girlfriend suggested we move there I was more than excited. We arrived, found work, then. I hated it. Not going ship on people who enjoy the city, but it just wasn't for me. Visiting to party and have fun is very different from living there. I moved to NYC briefly and realized I didn't want to do day-to-day there. For me it's better to visit. Loved the idea of living in Seattle when I was a teenager, even before grunge. Moved here in 1995 and I still love it here. NYC would have been my second choice. It has a lot of energy. Reading all the comments from a suburban area is making me so sad and jealous as someone who wants to live in the city. My ex was like this with Berlin. We moved there together and it lived up to the hype. It's certainly not for everyone, but it was definitely for us. I'd never really thought much about the city before moving there, but would gladly move back someday. I lived in Tokyo for a year and loved it. I also grew up visiting fairly often and had dual citizenship, which made some things easier. However, I don't like Tokyo much currently. Tourists are getting crazy and places like Shibuya are just way too busy to be enjoyable now. IMO. Born and raised in a small town in the middle of nowhere in the American South, moved to a small, spread-out city in the American South for college, then another small, spread-out city in the American Midwest for grad school, then another small, spread-out city in Texas for my postdoc. Only now that I'm living in San Francisco, a city I always dreamed of, can I say I truly love where I live. I had to move away, but London still makes my heart sing. I left a relationship partly because he wouldn't move to Vancouver with me. It was silly, I'd only visited twice, but I wanted to try BC so badly. IDK how I knew, but 6 years later I still adore this city. I'm sure I live in the best neighborhood in the country and I'm paying rent I never would have found if I'd waited longer to move. There are a lot of bad things about this city, but I'm glad I followed my gut on it. I moved to NYC in 2000. It was a struggle, but I love the city. After watching the Twin Towers collapse on the 9th of November while walking to work, I went back to New Orleans to see some friends. It was so much less stressful, I just stayed. Moved to Philly a few years ago after only having visited once, 15 years prior. I loved the energy and vibe of the place then, and I always thought it would be fun to live there. When it was time to move somewhere New Year's later, we chose to give Philly a try, and my husband had never stepped foot here. No regrets. We love it. I just wish we had come here sooner. I hadn't visited San Diego before moving across the US. Probably the best decision I ever made. Yes, and it's better than I thought. Can't wait to leave Tokyo. This was worst move of my life. There's no joy or excitement here. Just overworked, repressive people with no depth to them. My opinion. Alright folks, this was Frank. Follow for more daily top comments from AskReddit.